and I was kept for about 3 months, awaiting to see if I would convert. I was given the window of opportunity to convert. I refused to. I delayed, hoping that I'd see a lawyer. I never saw one. And so they told me wherever they're taking me, I'll be killed there.
Welcome to the Podcast for Inquiry, brought to you by the Centre for Inquiry Canada, a national educational charity supporting your community for reason, compassion, and secular humanist values. You have answers, we have questions. I'm your host, Leslie Rosenblood, board member and secular chair for CFIC. Welcome. My guest today on Podcast for Inquiry is Mubarak Bala. Mubarak was born in Nigeria's Kano state on the southern coast of the Sahara Desert in 1984. He was schooled in both the Islamic and modern education system. This makes him somewhat of an outlier because most families believe the two school systems are mutually exclusive. Boko, or Western education, is Haram, or un-Islamic. When Mubarak started doubting the existence of demons, he was told that displaying any doubt was denying the word of the prophet. When his beliefs evolved to atheism, he paid an enormous price for saying so publicly. We talk about his experiences and also about Nigerian society, the Humanist Association of Nigeria, and Mubarak's plans for the future. It is my pleasure to bring you my conversation with Mubarak Bala. Mubarak Bala, thank you for talking to me today on Podcast for Inquiry.
Thank you. Thank you, Leslie. Thank you for having me.
I wanted to have you on the show today because your story is compelling and it's something that I think more people need to be aware of. I am very fortunate to live here in Canada, where identifying as a humanist comes at no cost. And even within Canada, I have been very fortunate. And when I started publicly expressing my non-belief, there was no price I had to pay within my family or within society. It was just accepted as one of many possible options, and certainly no worse than many others. But I'm quite aware that that was not the case for you in terms of the reaction of your family. You went to jail, and I want to get to all of that. But I want to start with I know very little about your home country, about Nigeria. I've read a few stories, I've read a few nonfiction books, but my knowledge is very limited. So I was hoping you could start by telling me about your childhood and what life was like for you as a child growing up, and how you viewed the world.
All right, good. Thank you. Thank you, Leslie, for having me. And I'd like to say hello to your audience and friends all around the world. I think my first rescue a decade ago was from a Canadian, godless mom, Courtney Hurd. This was when I was incarcerated in the hospital for declaring for atheism. That's against Islam. So my trouble did not start 5 years ago with blasphemy accusation. It started much, much earlier when I decided that I am no longer a believer in my former religion of Islam. And my parents took it personal and thought I had to be crazy. And I made arrangements with a doctor to declare me insane. I think it was part of the Sharia process. The Sharia process is that once you declare out of Islam, you declare yourself away from Islam as an apostate, you get to decide in 3 days. They give you 3 days, and those 3 days are supposed to make you recant or lose your head, unless you have a mental issue. So if you are insane, you would be let go. So my parents started the process probably to protect me, but the problem is that they decided to also medicate me, which was wrong. I know they knew. Definitely, my father is educated, so he knew I was sane. He knew I was very okay. but yet decided that I had to be medicated because it was so desperate that I had to be a Muslim rather than an atheist. So this was it. But my childhood, I think I became an outlier in my society because the society is split in two. You are either for the education, this is modern education, or you are for the Al-Majri system, which is the Islamic system. So I became an outlier because my parents thought merging the two schools of thought would help it would help a person become a better Muslim and a more effective Muslim in a way that you have to conquer the world, but you can't do it with primitive technology. So their hope was that when we get educated, we'll be planted in the army, in the military, in the maybe whatever workforce that you could, so that we have representative Muslims everywhere, so that when the global jihad comes, everyone will have his role to play. This is the natural agenda for any Muslim. And it happened that I was being prepared for the military. My father was very eager about it, and I thought I was made for the military as well. But as fate would have it, I never had the chance to. But the resilience and the courage I think I has been tough. I've been very, very, since my childhood, I've been too maybe confrontational. I don't kowtow to any order or obedience. I was always upfront and I say my mind and I resist. You could punish me, but I'll still say the last word. I always do that. And so yes, so I got lucky. I got beaten several times, even in school. But I was also very curious, inquisitive, and I was very mindful of the environment, the universe as well. I loved to ask questions, but I was always scared and I was always intimidated and asked not to ask too many questions. You see, in my school, I think I was the best in Arabic, the best in Islamic studies, the best in all those Quran and all those lessons. But I was also the best in mathematics, the best in physics, the best in geography. So I had all these maybe two, what do you call them, schools of thought merging in my head. And so by the time I was comparing the two, since my early childhood, I realized one is by intimidation and belief by force, while the other is actually making sense because you just see it. It's one plus one. And so I think I long ago realized the bullshit, but there is no much courage from either parents or from the society to voice it out. They always called me the weird one. That's my peers, my
Mhm.
friends would say your questions are too weird. That why do you think so much? You have I think there are friends that called me uh, the I couldn't remember the word actually, but it was more like Mubarak, the uncommon sense Mubarak. And so when I had my first Twitter account, when I wrote my name Mubarak Bala at Mubarak Bala, I wrote uncommon sense because the prevailing common sense in my society was totally opposite of whatever I was thinking.
Right.
And it happened that since those curiosity years, I think I was more or less an outlier among my friends. An outlier in the sense that I don't really agree to whatever I was being told. I investigated. I could remember when a Quran teacher, I think is a Quran lesson teacher, telling us that the verses of the Quran are so in number. Everyone accepted it, but I had to take the Quran. I counted the verses. I lined up 114 verses and I counted and I did my arithmetics and it didn't add up. And so when the next lesson came, I questioned that this is not what you said. And people would wonder why would I challenge the teacher like that? And they let go of the matter. And there were instances when I was questioning a cleric about killing of the gecko lizard. I always questioned that you said the original sin, as we were supposed to be criticizing Christianity, that the original sin is wrong to say that I have to be blamed for the sins of Adam and Eve, the supposed first humans. Then, if I now ask what original sin did the gecko lizard commit, because they said there was a gecko lizard that aided in the burning of Prophet Abraham in Mesopotamia maybe 3,000 years ago. And I questioned and I wondered what has the gecko lizard in my own house here had to do with the gecko lizard in Mesopotamia, even if that gecko lizard could interact with humans. I knew it was a legend or a story, just maybe fictional story. But then they said the prophet said it, so you have to believe it. You can't doubt the prophet. Someone somewhere else have already done my thought for me, have already reasoned my life for me, have already defined what stages of life I have to follow in his footsteps all through my life. I don't have my own life. I have to follow the life of the
So
prophet. I think
you
that's
don't
where the
have to
conflict
think, you
comes from.
just obey.
Obey, yes, of course. And I don't have my own life to play. I have to obey exactly the life of the prophet. So I was wondering when there was a time I made an argument. I said, why do you think the 2 billion Muslims are not inventing anything? Our people cannot invent anything because we are not supposed to think. We're supposed to just follow in tow of what the prophet has already decided for us. This is why we cannot think and use our brains to innovate. We are not making airplanes, we are not making phones, we are not making laptops. You reason like this and it's blasphemy. It's actually blasphemy. It could land you in jail or make you lose your life. And so I think before I became public atheist, I was private atheist for half a decade, about 2008 onwards. I think I was an atheist, but I lacked the internet because there was no internet in Nigeria then. So I didn't have the friends. I don't have like minds. So I believed I was different. I believed I don't believe what the society believed. But I also thought this is my life. This is how I have to live my life in private and in secrecy until I think about 2010-11 when the internet started penetrating Africa through the coming of the BlackBerry phones. Then I realized that there is a whole world out there on Twitter, and I think I connected more with Canadians back then. And I said, wow, I have thought of this, I have seen this, I have heard of this. Then I saw YouTube videos and this and that. Then I realized who I was. That's when I now knew what atheism is, what humanism is, what agnosticism is, and other terms that you folks used. I never knew all these terms. All I knew was that I was an unbeliever in these crap, and I knew I would be in trouble someday, and so the internet gave me that confidence and courage to say my mind. But I started it carefully with friends and family. So the moment I told them I don't think Allah exists, I don't think demons exist, then people would wonder. I think I started with the demons because you can't go to the top boss when you have the minions around. So I said demons do not exist. So people are, if you say demons don't exist, it means you have negated the Quran, meaning the whole Quran is a lie, meaning the Prophet is a liar, meaning you are susceptible to be murdered. And so it starts like that. Then in reality, okay, you see, with the problem, electricity is gone, but we have backup.
I can still see you and hear you, so your backup is working.
Okay, good. Sorry, we can continue. So now you are in trouble with all these thoughts. When the moment you declare you are no longer believing in this, and so there are no demons, no angels, and then finally you say no God. The moment you say there's no God, then you are absolutely crazy. You are insane. You are insane. It means you are susceptible to maybe medications. This is when they started medicating me. So I had to run away because of that. And by then, the BBC has carried the news, and the news said that someone has left Islam. And immediately, the leader of Boko Haram picked it that I was a contractor for the white people, the Jews. And so I had to be killed. He cursed me. He said I was such as the infidels are, with the agenda against the Muslim agenda against the Sharia.
Okay, there's
The northern Nigerian populace, for the first time, agreed with Boko Haram that I had to be killed. Yes.
there's just so much in what you've said. I want to sort of come back. We'll pick that up with Boko Haram declaring that you must be killed. As awful as that is, but I want to go back a little bit in your story. Is I want to learn a bit more about Nigeria. Is it predominantly Muslim? Is pretty much everyone in Nigeria Muslim? Is there a significant population of people of other faiths in the country as well?
Oh, yes. Nigeria was colonized a century and a half ago. It started from the Atlantic Ocean. So, from the south, where the British came, Christianity was more predominant. From the traditional religions, they were converting everyone else to Christianity. And so, by the turn of the 20th century, Christianity has dominated the south and crept up the Niger River, I think up to the Niger River. And now it met with the centuries old, because Islam has come through the Sahara Desert, through the Sahel
Hmm.
region. It had encroached up to the river Niger, yes, up to where the tropics started, these dense forest of, this is where Islam stopped. And so southwards, going southwards, you now have the Christian enclaves. And so it met at the center. I could remember the late Gaddafi uh, suggesting, after the Sudanese split, he suggested that since the north and south of Nigeria cannot live together, we've killed each other for centuries, I think for decades. He suggested that maybe we partition Nigeria from north and south and allow the Christians have their own country, which Nigerians, especially the Nigerian politicians, rejected. So, the 200 million, the 200 million people in Nigeria, by the last
Hmm.
estimate, 214, I think, I would say 100 plus are Muslims and 100 plus are Christians. But there is also this
Roughly evenly
mesh in the
split
middle of
between the two
Nigeria. It's a
faiths.
mesh. Exactly, but there is a mesh in the middle where there is more Christians in the north than the than the Muslims. But this is where this is where the friction starts. This is maybe where the tectonics are grinding, and the killings that you always hear from Nigeria, from this region. My people want to dominate the Christians. And so the Christians are marginalized and they're being killed, and it's underreported, and they're being silenced. They can't actually speak, and the government always looks away. If a cleric just sitting as I am with a camera declaring so people must be killed, or this Christian has to be warned or they'll kill him. And such Christian does not have the courage or the backup to speak for themselves or their churches. Any slight blasphemy, let's say in Lisbon, let's say someone drew a caricature of the prophet in Lisbon or in Cuba, you'd see Muslims, my brothers, rising to kill Christians in Kano or in Katsina or in Kaduna. It happens all the time. They always look for the slightest excuse to kill Christians because they want to encroach the land. My people want to dominate the whole of the country. When I was growing up, the adage we always had was that the Quran has to reach the Atlantic Ocean. Then there was an agenda by the late Usman Danfodio, which he was a jihadist in 1804 who brought new form of Islam, which is the more puritanical Islam, and he was dominating. He created an empire as far as I think Adamawa State, which is the most extreme, very close to the Cameroon, most extreme end of Nigeria from the top northwest region. In fact, from Mali and Niger. So his empire stretched and lasted a century until the British came and dismantled it. But the action was that the agenda for the jihad was that it has to reach the Atlantic Ocean. All those tribes had to be subjugated and they had to live under an Islamic rule. And this is why you would hear something called Muslim ticket. Whenever there is a political circle going on, when there is the presidency and the vice president selecting, it has to be a mix of the two. It used to be a mix of the two. If you have a Christian president, you must have a Muslim vice president and vice versa. But then the agenda now encroached so much that now you only have Muslim. The ticket that carries a Muslim president and a Muslim vice president is the winning ticket. And this is the first time in history of the country that you have a Muslim president, a Muslim vice president. And there was an attempt to have a Muslim Senate president and a Muslim speaker. I think they only failed at once. So we have all the top as Muslims. And the agenda I told you where my parents were running was that we, the educated ones, are supposed to be dominating all of these offices, all of these parastatals, so that we dominate whenever we're there. We just put in our boys, Muslim boys. I think I had a trouble a decade ago at work. I got to work in Kaduna State when I escaped Kano. The moment I escaped the captivity at the psychiatric hospital, I got a job with Kaduna Electric. And the moment I was discovered that it was that Mubarak, someone said among the management, I think mid-level management, he said the job is for Muslim boys only. And how come a non-believer sneaked in to get that job? And I was suspended for a year. Yes. And so this had happened. So you always see these instances of domination by my people. And this is why I rejected the asylum offers and all those. A decade ago, I rejected it, and now I also reject it. I'm traveling out of the country in a month or two. I will go for studies and I will return back to Nigeria because the fact that if you are exiled, it means they have won. If you are killed, they have won. So my hope is that I could come back and vie for the presidency if I could, or another office. But I don't necessarily have to win, but just making a stand that I am part of the society. The society must adjust to have people such as myself, fringe people of the of the society, where minorities, atheists are minorities, the tribes that are minorities are there, and also you have religious minorities such as the Christians that I told you. There are Shiite minorities, there are Sufi minorities. Everyone else is being killed by the mainstream Islamic Wahhabi doctrine. And this is when I now mention to you that Osama bin Laden actually funded Boko Haram with 450,000 euros. Uh, they were celebrating, like people were celebrating September 11th, a quarter of a century ago. But when Osama bin Laden learned that he has a big fandom in northern Nigeria, he started recruiting. He recruited a lot of people. I met one of them. He's already incarcerated now. So he now started siphoning around and laundering money into Nigeria to start the Sharia agitation, which gave birth to Boko Haram and later the ISIS of West Africa. They call it ISWAP. So we have the Sahel region as the most dangerous region with Islamism now in the world. It's more dangerous than Afghanistan, is more dangerous than Somalia, the Sahel region. The killings happening here are underreported, I think, because we are black and probably because this is a poverty region of the world.
Yeah.
If you could recall, we also termed the poverty capital of the world. And one of the things that landed me in jail was actually acknowledging that we are the poverty capital of the world because we have clung to the religion of the Middle East and we don't have the oil associated with the uh, Islam. And so we wallow in poverty and we reject education. These are the things that actually anger my people. The moment you mention that Islam is responsible for the terrorism, then you are in the radar of the because normally there are terrorists killing and then also there are Muslims killing. There is a very big difference. Terrorists are those that have declared for jihad and they're actively killing. And then you have the Muslim, moderate Muslim that is there encouraging the terrorists with their propaganda, with the media, especially social media, and especially during the sermons in the mosques. Nobody ever have countered that. The government never does that. You could see that there has never been an arrest by anyone, by any government, of anyone threatening to kill me. I'm supposed to be responsible for my own life and the life of those that are atheists, such as me. But the government does not intervene. If you ended up dead, you are dead. They will just say you risked your life for nothing. You risked your life, maybe you took too much risks. And this has been the case for a decade, maybe 5, 6 years. And then the government decided to take sides and abduct me. There was never an arrest, it was an abduction. And when I was abducted from where I was working, Kaduna State, I was smuggled. This was during the
Hmm.
COVID-19. There was no interstate movement, but I was smuggled into my home state of Kano, and I was kept at the police headquarters, and I was kept for months, weeks and weeks and weeks, and there was nothing but conversion therapy. This was almost the same as the psychiatric hospital, but this time it was people of the federal extraction, people with the federal mind. This is not a state government. This
Hmm.
is federal police and they were just asking how I could betray my own people, how I could betray the agenda to dominate Nigeria, to own Nigeria. The belief is that the planet Earth is made by Allah, the God of the Muslims, and so everyone on this planet is living on a rented property of Allah, and Allah made this planet solely for the Prophet Muhammad. And Prophet Muhammad has declared that this planet has to have a Muslim world, a Muslim population. And so whoever does not convert has to, the process. So it's either you're submitting to the authority of Islam or you're killed and your property is booty, war booty, and your wives and children, of course, are slaves. And so this is the sermon all around. So Nigeria has this problem of not believing that the indigenous population are human beings. They just believe that you're either submitting to the system or you're done away with. This is why they're always in poverty.
You mentioned that
You have to
until
speak.
recently, the Nigerian government was kind of split between Christians and Muslims. Like if the president was Muslim, the vice president was a Christian, or vice versa. Uh, but what you've just told me makes it seem like Sharia law is the law of the land. Is Nigerian a Sharia law country, and how does that work for the 100 million Christians that live in Nigeria, as well as non-Wahhabi Muslims?
Excellent. You just thought the proposal I have. This is when I leave Nigeria because it's a very dangerous proposal. The proposal I have for the Nigerian government, I want to make it clear to the government that we must have a referendum. The referendum must be nationwide so that everyone decides which constitution we work with. The constitution is very clear that there cannot be an adoption of any religion, neither the Christian religion nor the Muslim religion, neither of the two could ever be
Oh, that's
state religion.
wonderful. I think all
So
countries
just
should
to
have
help
something
you
like that. I'm a big fan of secularism myself.
exactly now the hypocrisy comes that this constitution is jettisoned. It has never worked. It is never working. So a third of the country of the 36
Hmm.
states of the federation, a third of those countries have already declared for the Sharia. I think when the military rule ended in 1999, the state governments decided to leave the secular constitution and adopt the Sharia law. And so there were killings. There were several killings. Millions died. This is what gave birth to the Sharia movement and the jihadism that you see. So this is where people like Osama bin Laden picked interest because Nigerians now are really agitating for a Sharia system. They started with the state governments, and so about 12 states of the 36 states now became Sharia states. They're operating under the constitution, but also a Sharia state. So the ambiguity was that you could operate a secular federal system at the top, but under that you have the Sharia system. So you may not be able to carry out the 100% Sharia, but you do it within your state, and then when someone appeals further into the system, probably if you are incarcerated, suppose, for example, I was sentenced to death for blasphemy or for apostasy, then I have a chance at appeal. But by then, probably I must have landed a decade in jail because before I could ever have the chance to reach the federal system. And so the Sharia has dominated about a half of the states, and then uh, gradually it encroached because I told you I was abducted by
Hmm.
federal employees. Those are the kind of Muslims that were planted to work for Islam 6 decades ago. And so these Muslims have now gotten the courage that they are operating on the secular constitution, but they are working just as Sharia police would work. And so the Sharia constitution is now superior by intimidation to the federal constitution. This is why, even in the South, you have the Sharia law and you have the public intimidation of individuals. For example, just last week, a young man there was a heated argument in Nigeria. It takes weeks before these kind of arguments go. The argument was that the shoe of the holy prophet of Islam is better than all human beings. Such crazy thought. But it takes weeks. The argument takes weeks. So now someone said the shoe of the prophet was not better than him as a Muslim, as a person, because the prophet never said so. And because of that, they declared he be killed. But do you know that the federal constitution does not protect anyone here? No one was arrested. There are several videos. I think they have raised over $1 million in 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 reward money for anyone that could kill such a person. So individuals would come public, declare 5 million naira. If you could ever reach to kill such a person, we could give you this. The federal government would keep
And it
quiet
was the
until
government
such
who
an
was putting
individual
a
is killed.
bounty on this person's life.
No, these are individuals. philanthropists mostly, but the federal government does not
Oh,
intervene in
okay.
such
So yeah,
cases. But
so
I
as
would
even
also
even
tell
for
you,
something as terrible as one person saying, "I will give you 5 million naira to kill this person," the government's not endorsing it, but it isn't doing anything to stop it. It's just letting this happen.
exactly. Exactly. So what happens is that there are instances when the government swings to please the masses, such as the appeasement you saw in my incarceration. It was an appeasement of the populace. The Muslim populace wanted me dead, so the government put me in incarceration. I was supposed to serve 40 years in jail. I think 16 years and 24 years. And this is the government now taking sides with the Muslims. But there are instances when they would only stand idly by until the individual is murdered. Then the government will come and offer compensation for the families of the murdered. This has happened. You could Google it with Miss Bridget Abahime, with Miss Deborah, with Mr. Gideon Akaluka, and several others that have been killed. They lost their lives because of these blasphemy laws and the mob vigilante attacks. Muslims would kill you instantly. So the plan with the government, I think the government also planned this for me, an indirect annihilation. They wanted me dead, but they didn't want to do it because I had the international reputation. So they'd prefer I be killed without their hands actually carrying out the murder. And so when I was abducted, I was taken into Kano State, my home state, which is almost 100% Muslim. And I was kept for about 3 months, awaiting to see if I would convert. I was given the window of opportunity to convert. I refused to. I delayed, hoping that I'd see a lawyer. I never saw one. And so they told me wherever they're taking me, I'll be killed there. So they took me to a jail which was about 2,000 in population and all Muslim, almost all Muslim. There is only about 100 Christians out of the 2,000 strong Muslims. And this is a prison that there is no isolation, there is no protection. So I was just thrown in there. Probably if I was discovered to be an atheist or a blasphemer as well as an apostate, then I would definitely be killed. And this would have happened on several occasions. They knew and they let it happen. And so, as a survival tactic, when they offered Islam again, I had to convert to Islam for months and months and months. I had to pray, I had to fast, I had to obey the rules and regulations. And there were times when they allowed access, and my mother came, they would tell her that this man has really repented. He's back in his senses now. He's a Muslim. He's a good Muslim. We have won. And there was a time when the welfare officer of the prison actually told my mom that their only disappointment is that I'm still keeping company of Christians. That even though they have worked and the miracle has succeeded, I am back to Islam. I'm still keeping a company of non-Muslims. And so my mom now told him that, but Mubarak has always been good with Muslims and non-Muslims. And so I think he's good, he's okay. And I told my mom I only converted because I was forced to. It was a command and not that it was out of my own conscience. And she understood that because they are not supposed to give her hope that I'm back to Islam and then break her heart all over again that I'm leaving, probably. So this has happened also in jail. So I think the jail I was kept had also, this is one of the names that I told you, Mr. Gideon Akaluka was killed in the jail behind my cell just a few years prior. He was accused of blaspheming Islam, I think, desecrating the Quran, and he was taken to a police station. The police station was stormed. He was about to be killed when the government now took over and handed him over to the correctional facility. They could have taken him out of Kano State or maybe into the southern states to keep him, probably for the law to take its course if there was any law that was broken. But they decided to keep him in Kano. And then the mob discovered where he was being kept and they came across in the night and they beheaded him. We were children when we saw his head on a spear, uh, being paraded around Kano State with the songs of the soldiers of Allah, taking the head around Kano to show off, and there was nothing that was done. I think there were a few arrests, but I think one of those that was arrested was the current emir of Kano, and he scaled through the trial and he became the CBN governor and later is now an emir of the state. It's regrettable such things could happen. So there is no justice. You could only lose your life. So I would have been killed in jail, but I followed through with the Islamic doctrines until I had a lawyer. And so 24 months later, when I had my first chance at seeing a judge, uh, I realized the best thing is to plead guilty to whatever charges they had so that I could escape Kano, my own home state, because it's becoming more dangerous. I've been there 24 months. And
And
so
was
the
this
moment I
was
saw the
this
judge and they read
so you
whatever
finally
charges,
did get to speak with a lawyer, and you were charged. The charges. What were you charged with? Was it with blasphemy, apostasy, both?
well, I escaped the apostasy charge because I was declared insane. That was a decade ago. So there was nothing about the blasphemy. So, as I told you, the states have
Yes.
adopted the Sharia. So I was charged not under the Sharia. I was charged under the civil law of Kano State. The civil law is like maybe the
Okay.
secular constitution, but also it's blasphemy law. So it's blasphemy under the civil constitution, not
Okay.
blasphemy under Sharia. If it was under Sharia, the sentence would be death. But under the constitution, I am liable to spend a few years in jail and maybe receive some lashings.
Yeah.
It's
Even
still Sharia,
Canada,
it's still
until
Sharia, but
just a few years
constitutional
ago,
Sharia.
had a blasphemy law. It wasn't used often, but at least on the books, you could go to jail for up to 2 years for blasphemous libel. And I'm happy to say it's been repealed, but that's a fairly recent development here. So, did your lawyer
Exactly.
recommend that you plead guilty in order to make the case, like in order to like get a plea bargain, or like what was the rationale for you uh, to plead guilty to the blasphemy charges?
Okay, so I have been incarcerated for 24 months in that jail, and I never had the chance to meet my lawyer in person. I had representatives coming and going, but there is no progress. There are no charges. There is no much information I could make out from. So I have already concluded that my own fate is by my own hands. My life is mine to defend. And this is what also the arresting officer has told me, that if I go to trial, I should never confront the authorities. I should plead guilty. I should beg for mercy if I want to live. He told me it's never about the law, it's never about the trial. It's about the mob that would come for you and burn the courtroom. And I could be known by then where my location is, and so the mob could also break into the prison and kill me. It has happened before. And so I decided the moment I saw the judge, I remember the keeper of the jails also telling me such things, that you have to save your life, save the life of the staff carrying you around to the court. And so it's up to me to confront those people that I stand my ground and repeat whatever I say, that I stand by those words, or I plead guilty and save the lives of the Christians in Kano State and the lawyers that are supposed to represent me and myself and the staff that are responsible for my life. And so by this plea guilt, I have already cut the trial. There is no emotional outburst. There are no individuals taking the law into their own hands or going on a rampage in the city. I'll still be blamed for that. So I was charged with two things. The blasphemy, I was not charged with apostasy. I was charged with blasphemy against Islam, called insulting Islam or insulting religious creed. Then also I was charged with starting an insurrection, some sort of insurrection that probably my words could have led to murders in the street. And so I would be responsible if anyone went and burned a tire or killed a Christian lady or maybe sacked a shop. They could do that. The moment they had the chance, they could do that, and I'll still be blamed. And so the trial was never supposed to be in Kano. In fact, it was never supposed to ever hold, even if I was guilty, because trying me is only one thing that would trigger a whole lot of cascades of trouble, and it would end up in killing people. And so the best thing to do, if I was ever to be tried, would have been out of Kano State. You arrested me in Kaduna. The jurisdiction was supposed to be Kaduna State. I was supposed to be tried in Kaduna. If I stole a goat in Kano State, why should I be taken to Canada for trial? This is what they did. Because in Kano, they had absolute authority, while Kaduna State is a mix of the two, and sort of mini Nigeria. So the staff that you could expect to work against me could actually work for me. If they're Christians, they will defend me. If they are not Christians, they will defend their religion. And so the trouble ended
Yeah.
that day. and the lawyers were not happy with it because it made them lose a case. But I actually saved their lives, and they pled with me that I should accept and take the trial. The trial would have taken 5 years. I would still have been in jail under the trial. So by ending the trial immediately as I saw the chance, because I was denied bail, the bail was denied. I cut my own custody from Kano state custody now to federal custody. By federal custody, it means I could apply and get relocation. So I applied, I relocated myself out of Kano state into the capital, Abuja state, which is supposed to be a secular prison. But also it had all its fanatics there because the Boko Haram captives were also there. I was also lucky because they broke the prison just prior to my transfer. They broke the prisons and their commanders left that prison. So I met only a sprinkle of hardliners
What you're
there.
describing is
So
is
I
somewhat
lasted another
terrifying.
2 years on an appeal.
What?
Of course, see my gray hair.
Yeah. No, I mean, what you're describing is essentially mob rule, where uh, the police and the
Exactly.
government, the courts are secondary, and like that, that um, if something is unpopular, they will simply kill whoever stands in their way, regardless of the law, regardless of really any other considerations. Uh, do you see that changing in Nigeria anytime soon? I mean, I don't, I, I, I don't, I wouldn't want personally to live in a country or in a place where there isn't the rule of law, where it is mob rule. Um, is that something that you've learned to live with? Is this something that you feel can change? What needs to change? How would that come about?
Okay. Nigeria would not change. As far as I'm seeing it, the trajectory is trouble, trouble, trouble. The Sahel region, as I told you, is now the most dangerous
Mm-hmm.
region of the world, beyond Afghanistan, beyond Pakistan, beyond the Somali region. I think only Gaza could count with the loss of lives. Uh, so now, what I'm saying is, Nigeria would not change, and this is why I have to come back. I hope that I am the change that could happen, or maybe the catalyst for the change that could happen. Hopefully, if I run for president, I'll run with the mandate to resecularize Nigeria, and the campaign will now go beyond the political ends because we have to make it a civil duty on civil rights movement, sort of, so that we can resecularize the country. The Supreme Court has a say. The Supreme Court must decide how the constitution, how Nigeria is being run, because they're also intimidated. The judges, they could mention a terrorist could sit and mention a judge, even mention your own address, your own family address, and tell you that they are watching. Whatever decision is about to be taken, they would tell you, we are watching, whatever you decide. And it doesn't have to be a terrorist. It could just be a cleric, but you know he has 100,000 mob behind him. So you have to kowtow to the whatever demands they make. And so the judges, when the governors were declaring for the Sharia, instead of the Supreme Court to sit down and say it's not constitutional, they couldn't. So the president convened a sitting with all of the governors and told them he cannot accept the Sharia being reintroduced after 2 centuries of defeat by a century of defeat by the colonial British. Do you know that the governors intimidated the president and told him if he interfered, they would kill him? And he had to. This is coming from the intelligence sources. So the then President Obasanjo was sat down by the governors and was told to shut up about Islam. Otherwise, he would lose his life. This is a sitting president, and he had to. So he went and prayed. This is what he said in his own confession. That he went and prayed that, oh God, oh Jesus, if the Sharia is from you, let it happen. If it's not from you, let it dissipate. And he gave up. Then the Sharia took over the region and the killings continued. He was powerless. He couldn't even depose the governors. He could have suspended any governor for 6 months. But the upheavals that could have arisen from that, Nigeria may never have recovered. I think this is why Muammar Gaddafi, when he saw the killings over the years, every time on Al Jazeera, even before Al Jazeera, BBC, every time killings, killings, killings. Gaddafi, even as murderous as he was rational enough to understand that Nigeria is more or less Sudan, and there has to be a partition. And this is why I am still proposing that the government has to give people a chance. If you want a Talibanistan system, probably we could give you a strip of land across the Sahel. You could join the jihadists and form your own country. They still want a Sharia law. They still want an Afghanistan system in northern Nigeria. This is my people. The Sahara Belt. This is where the dominant effect is. So the terrible thing is that the trajectory of the country is is a dangerous trajectory, and the region with the higher population and the higher land mass is the one now dictating politically the direction of the country, which is not good for anyone. And hopefully, I would be a rational voice of change, maybe in a decade or half a decade to come. That's if I'm alive. So this is why I'm coming back to Nigeria. This is why I told the diplomats offering asylum that I don't want to lose my Nigerian passport. I don't want to lose the mandate to speak for Nigeria, because if I left, it means I left them to their own self-destruction. My people are living in a trance. We are living in a sort of delusion, full delusion. I've welcomed some of them, but a lot of them are in full delusion that the life after this one is better than this one. And I always keep telling them, which is one of the charges on my sheet, that I said there is no life after death, and that this is the life we'll ever have. So there are terrible things that are being taking place here in the name of Islam in Nigeria. Even the Saudis are trying to shift away from this puritanical Islam, but Nigeria is not,
All right. So
sadly.
take me back to your trial. You have just pled guilty, and your lawyers are upset with you, but you did so to save your life, the life of everyone associated with this trial. You've already been in jail for 2 years at this point. What happens after you plead guilty and beg for mercy?
Well, I was supposed to serve 40 years in jail, and I always believed that they had no jurisdiction to try me. This was the first argument. And so we appealed uh, the case, and it took 2 years to get halfway justice, where it said that yes, I'm liable for trial, I'm guilty, but I've served my sentence of 5 years. So it's still an injustice. So we have appealed further to the Supreme Court. I have employed a new set of lawyers this January, and we're starting all over again. So the Supreme Court will decide if my abduction was legal, if it was within the law. We don't know if the Supreme Court would be courageous enough to declare this. If my trial could be the first declaration against the Sharia, if I was ever, my records were set straight. And so I pled guilty and I left Kano, and the appeal took 2 years to decide, which was also in Kano State. The appeal took place in Kano State, but the Supreme Court decision would be in Abuja here. And hopefully, exactly also, just a year ago, the new president of the Muslim ticket have reconstituted the Supreme Court panel. It used to, they skewed it in such a way that you have Muslim majority on the seat, the judges. There are supposed to be constitutionally about 11 judges, and the president refused to approve a number of judges from the Christian dominated areas, and so it was not a balanced seat. And some seats were vacant for years until now when the president reconstituted, and now we have almost a balanced number of judges across the country. And so we hope there could be maybe some rational decisions being uh, churned out of the courts, hopefully without the corruption associated with the judiciary, because I've read and we have seen that a lot of monies have to go through for major decisions to happen. Yeah, so there was a call that came in, so I missed a lot of your questions. So if you could, have I answered your question?
Yeah, no, that's good. Thank you. Um, I you mentioned that you're looking to study abroad. What do you want to study, and what do you want to and when do you hope to return to Nigeria?
Okay, so I had an application that just came through with the German government. It's a scholarship called Elizabeth Salzburg Scholarship. It's supposed to last 6 months. It covers the flight and maybe accommodation and a few stipend uh, uh, maybe that could cover me for 6 months towards the end of the year. And I am looking around for a scholarship for a further study because I have a master's degree, and I am made to apply a few schools. Probably I'll be accepted by the end of the year, probably in the US, Canada, or the UK. I don't know much about that yet, but we are still in the process. So my hope is to hop around the world for a few years, recover, recuperate, and see what I could start, maybe back home via the internet. And that will determine, especially the coming election. There will be another cycle of elections in 2 years, and this would determine whether the trajectory could be reversed or is irreversible. So now, if I see that there is a chance that I could ever come back to Nigeria and fight for the lifeblood of the country, then I would. Hopefully in 2 years or a little bit more, because it's a study. I told you this is 6 months, or maybe a PhD program for a year or two would take me towards 2027. Then we see the outcome of the election, which way Nigeria takes. By then, probably I have started the demand for the date for a referendum for the country so that we could reinstitutionalize the secular constitution. This could be one man war. This could just be me fighting, or I could start something with the maybe the youth, with the younger generation. So if the stars align very well in a sense, then it means I could return and I could vie for the presidency in 2030. That's about 5 years from now. This is it would take a lot of resources, a lot of organizing, a lot of this. But I hope I could do it because in a safer, if I started now, I would immediately call back the attention of the authorities, and I will either be put to death or put away for good, incarcerated. And so I want to do it where they cannot touch me until maybe we have made an impact. And when I come back, I don't have to be arrested. I don't have to be silent. There's also the threat of death. I would fight it. When we win at the Supreme Court, I will also now petition all those that we have a number of institutions and a number of clerics and individuals that have threatened me, and no action was ever taken. So if I could now maybe set an example with some of them, we could see justice so that you don't have to sit down and say Mubarak has to die, and then you feel good or you feel you are a hero online. So if we could arrest one or two and serve them what they want to serve others, then hopefully there is a chance I would come back and start over. I started my life over in my 20s. I started over in my 30s with the challenges at work. And now in my 40s, I came out to nothing and I'm starting over all over again. And we know that starting over at 52 is very possible. So I don't know what the future holds for me, but I know as long as I'm alive, I'll not keep quiet. I've been quiet for so long. This is why I'm very happy being on your shows, because this is the only time I'm speaking in about 5 years. And although it's not enough because this is an international audience and my words were supposed to be towards my own people, the country, and maybe just a little change in the part of the world that I came from. I hope this is enough because just speaking to Canadians, speaking to the British, speaking to the people of the West, I don't think I will make much impact in your own political world, in your own social circles. Maybe a little inspiration may come, but your countries are far, far ahead than us economically, politically, and socially, especially given that you have the freedoms to say what you want to say. And I'm still trying to ask because I'm under sanction by the judges still. So my mouth is not supposed to criticize as much as I would want to.
Well,
And I
one of the
can't
reasons why
address
I
my people.
think hearing from you and hearing your story is important, even for people in Canada, in the West, where we do have these freedoms, is that we don't take them for granted. I think it's important for us to know what life is like for 200 million people in a single country in Africa, and that there's no guarantee that the freedoms that we enjoy here can't be taken away or can't be lost. We need to defend the freedoms that we do have. We need to support, in my opinion, people like you who want to allow people to have the same sorts of freedoms in other places. And we still have, I think, an obligation, at least for those of us in countries like Canada, to even if we are ahead economically and politically of some places like Nigeria, but to keep pushing forward. Like we're not perfect here. We've still got a long way to go before we actually have a genuinely secular, a genuinely free uh, um, country, and we need to continue working towards that. You may be running for the president of Nigeria in 5 years, but you are already President Bala, at least of the the Humanist Association of Nigeria. Can you tell me a little bit about the Humanist Association of Nigeria, the work that organization is doing, and your role as president?
Good. Thank you. So, Nigerian Humanists, I think it's not just the Nigerian Humanist Association. There are several organizations that we started and got registered over the past decade. We have the,
That's wonderful.
yes, we have the Nigeria Secular Society. We have the Northern Nigerian Humanist Association or Humanist Movement. We also have Atheist Society of Nigeria. We have Lagos Humanist Assembly. We have a lot of them over the past decade. Because there were times that you can't even have a register of any of these secular institutions, as long as it's not the church, as long as it's not a mosque. The churches register themselves, but the mosques never register. You just see them pop up, boom, 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 all around with all the certain sermons that you would see, some of them weird, some of them asking for jihad. And so we were determined that we have to register. We have to register because so that we'll be known. So the registration that we couldn't achieve for decades. What we read from the founding fathers of the association is that we couldn't register, so we were determined to have it registered. So we associated ourselves and we made sure that we got the first registrations about 5 6 years ago. Sorry, it's now my head is counting in 2020. So now it's about 9 years ago, actually. Yeah. So now we what we started with is community organizing. So as I told you, when I started, I thought I was alone. That the internet allowed us to see that okay, someone now is reaching out that I think like you. I think I because when I started, this is the first time my family heard that someone such as me exists. Even my family was scared and they thought it's craziness. And by the time it reached the international media and the local media and the upheaval and the uproar started that Mubarak has to be killed because apostasy means death by Islam. So a lot of individuals now reached out to me. Then I realized I was not alone. So all the past 5 years that I was hiding my belief, I was never alone. So we decided to bring ourselves together. But it was now more or less just support for each other. We support ourselves. So the most work we did was supporting the younger ones that are in school because once you start with these ideas, then your parents let you go. Some of them would lock you up, some of them would kill you, and some of them would let you go, but without any support system. And so we were helping the students to graduate. We also organized safe houses around the moment you're in trouble, because the moment they discover you don't pray, then you're in trouble. And the Islamic prayer is too demanding because it's daily, daily, daily. So most of us would fake being Muslim, but you can't cope with the prayer, so the daily calls to prayer. And when the moment your friends and your peers observe that you don't pray, then the suspicion now arise that you are probably not a Muslim. And so some of these people, sometimes they are safe, sometimes they are not. And so the moment we realize you're not safe, we reached out to anyone, then we see how we could remove you from the most dangerous areas into where you are safer, either in the south of the country, and in exceptional cases, arranging with the diplomats to have you out of the country. Because some of them would actually be in so much trouble that no one can protect them. The government will tell you they can't protect you, and so you have to leave. So we arranged for quite a few to leave Nigeria for good. We also arranged for some of them to Uh, I think we arranged ourselves into marriages. So within our society, when there were matchmaking processes, we achieved that a lot. We became family, and we started families. And so over the decade, I think the most we could ever say we achieved is remaining alive. We never achieved anything beyond that economically or socially or politically. Just remaining alive, organizing and protecting each other. This is the most basic we ever achieved. We lost a few individuals. I could count about three that we lost. Even during my incarceration, I think we lost a few to foul play, which we cannot determine which was it. Mostly it's murder by family. But just remaining alive, I think, is the first thing. Because once you leave the religion, you're supposed to find, what do you call it? Sanctuary in another religion. The best thing to do is enter into Christianity. You are in trouble, of course, but the Christian institution will protect you. They have the resources, they have massive amounts of money. And of course, you also have the maybe government support when you convert to other religions. But the moment you enter into humanism, which is pretty new, and there is no institution, there are no individuals known. I think I'm still maybe Leo Igwe and a few individuals that could be associated with humanism, but we don't have any structure. And if we did, it could have been burnt down or vandalized or probably a target of a bomb attack. And so uh, we are just the institution by ourselves, and we don't have much resources. We've never achieved that. I have never achieved financial independence. I think this is the time that I realized after leaving jail that I can no longer. I'm now unemployable in my own country. Even the presidency I told you I would seek, probably it is the same what do you call dead end, but it's worth a trial. So if I were ever to work, it has to be somewhere that understands that I'm not crazy and I don't have two horns coming out of my head. And also, of
Right.
course, and also there is the fear that some people thought associating with me means maybe angering your own God. And definitely some of them even think so literal that they think thunder will strike me at any time. And so you are not supposed to associate close with me. So now the challenges we have are numerous. And as I told you, I'm starting over at 40 with nothing. I lost my home. I lost a business. We started a restaurant in Kaduna State. It was demolished by the government for some project. Uh, I lost my home. I lost everything. I'm starting over. And this is the challenge that the community that we are still having, because the moment I was incarcerated, I never knew that so many people depended on my well-being. Because whatever we do, I had two jobs I was juggling with, along with the third one, which is the humanism, which is non-paid. But whatever we earn by ourselves, we just put it, we pool our resources into just helping ourselves, helping each other, paying this one, paying that. Sometimes a few individuals from around the world that understand what we are doing try to donate and see how we could pull through. But the moment I was incarcerated, then I came out and realized that so many people really depended on these gestures, these little things we were doing. So I came to realize a lot of people have dropped out of school. Some of those that we were getting medications for have already lost hope. And so it was backwards, backwards. And especially one dangerous thing I discovered was that the moment I was taken, then these mob got the confidence to come online and started listing names of atheists in northern Nigeria. I think this is the most dangerous aspect of it. And so a lot of atheists were outed into the open, and they were in such vulnerable positions that most of them had to publicly apologize and convert to Islam. Some of them had to register with the local mosque. Others had to go for Hajj and snap pictures in front of the Kaaba to show the world that they are not atheists. And a few individuals lost their lives, as I told you. The most painful one is the son of a cleric, a very prominent northern Nigerian cleric. And they just discovered that they declared back then that he died by an accident. So I came out of jail and I asked, okay, they discovered the family declared he's dead. Have you seen the car that they said he had accident with? No. Have you seen a police report of the accident? No. Have you seen any source by family? And they declared that he fell off his motorbike. We determined it was not true. And so this one now, the same thing happened. I cannot say it. I'm not supposed to even say it because it's dangerous for people associated with him. But I asked the person that spoke to him last, I said, has he mentioned that he was traveling the following morning? He said, no, he never mentioned it. They played chess online up through, I think, 2 a.m. They played chess. And the next morning, they declared that he's dead around 5 p.m. And so we don't know what really
I'm
happened. And I
sorry.
know if I were to petition the government, yeah, thank you. If I were to petition the government that to investigate this, it would create more upheaval now, and we may probably end up in loss of more lives. So I wouldn't want to touch too much on that. Hopefully, until I'm in a better authoritative position to do such things. So we are still trying, as I told you, just by existing, just by living, we're already defying the system. But we are never beyond any maybe opportunities that may arise. And if you are discovered to live even Christianity in Nigeria, your own family would disown you, and you wouldn't be much good to your own self, rather, or to the society. So we still depend on a little bit of largesse from friends around the world to help our community grow and our community to survive. We don't even thrive much because I think we're still in the doldrums of those things. I'm squatting currently in a friend's place. His parents are Christian, but I'm coping well, and I was never harassed. I am seen as a good man, a hero of some sorts. So achieving a lot in Nigeria, maybe it has to be when I'm president, then we enact the laws and protect the individuals. And mind you, I'm not just protecting humans, I'm also protecting Christians in the regions that they are being harmed because I have the voice. Typically, if you are a Hausa man in the northern Nigerian extract, then you have that maybe protective position just by my name, which is why it was very hard to get me. And when they got me, it was very hard to deal with me in ways probably I could call it the tribal connection. So it's just like being a white man in a world of, uh, let's say, in the West. So the tribe advantage is there. Because if I was a non-Hausa man with such accusations of apostasy and then blasphemy and then this and then that, I may never have survived it. But even with that, if I was a female, then my troubles would have been double what they are now. Because women
Okay.
cannot succeed in anything in Nigeria if you are not well endowed. Yes, thank you.
So there's clearly a lot of work to be done if Nigeria is to be governed by humanist principles rather than Sharia ones. Let's hypothesize you come back to Nigeria in 5 years, and through a miracle which neither of us believe in, through a miracle, you are elected president of Nigeria. What's the first thing that you do?
Okay. Uh, I think with that, when I mentioned the referendum, it will also come with a constitutional reform. The constitutional reform would be a conference of all the political agitators and all the active parties in the country to come and maybe confirm this constitution and remove any ambiguity that allows for crap such as running a two dual system of laws in the land. So it has to be secular. Either you just opt for Sharia and we give you an independence, or you opt for the secular constitution, which is civility. So we start with that, and then I end the Almajiri system. The Almajiri system, maybe you may Google it. I'll give you a link of this is what I've been doing even as a Muslim.
Yes, please
The
do, and
Almajiri
I will
system
put
has
I'll
about
put that link in
10
the show notes so that people can find it.
Okay, so the Almajiri system is a system of slavery. This is what supplies the terrorists with endless amount of fighters. It's a, it's a school where 10 million children are currently in, but it's not really a school. It's just throwing away your children into the streets to cater for themselves for their basic needs. My people have this idea of going to heaven, and so they reject the Western education, which is school. And so the moment the child turns 5, they throw him out. They give him the Quran. They give him a bowl to beg for food, and that's it. This is how the child grows. They will just roam the streets, and there are millions. It has been happening for centuries. I think when I did my research 2 decades ago, how it happened was that during the jihad of Usman Danfodio, They were taking so many female slaves that they had nothing because Islam allows for the rape of the slave and the slavery, but it never defined the children that you produce out of these relationships as your own children. They are also slaves. And so these children are being thrown out carelessly into the streets, but they were supposed to be armed with the Quran. So these children now grew in number and it became institutional. Now it's an institution in northern Nigeria and it's untouchable. So as an act of the presidency, I will end it. It's like ending centuries old slavery, freeing the children. I wrote several governors, I wrote several presidents. The only president that ever took action was a Christian president when he discovered, as of then, that was 2010, 11, and he discovered that there are 8 million Almajiri children roaming the streets in northern Nigeria. And I told him this is long before Boko Haram started violence. I told him that this is what would lead to, because I told him Somalia would be a child's play if you compare to what these kids would grow to become. And before he finished his tenure, he established a school in every state, Almajiri school, model schools with education, with school, with food, with curricula, with uniforms. And he tried to sanitize the system, but he failed because he failed the next election. He couldn't uh, replicate. And the next president that came, which was a Muslim, had the Isaiah agenda in mind and so never developed it. And so after for the 8 years and now 2 more years into this government for a decade, that system is dead and gone. So I have to bring it back, and this time it will be final solution for everything. Nobody would give birth to children and throw them out. The duckling carries the child, the duck carries the ducklings around. Even goats carry their children around to feed them, but human beings throwing out their children is the most inhumane act. So this thing has been paining me for 20 years so far. And there are other things I would do. Some of them I can't say it now because it means I'll never win the presidency. But I will also regulate the preaching. All these hate preachers that you see, someone sitting down to tell you that exactly. So you would you would preach that Christians should be killed, and you still have. So if I could give licenses, I would have to license mosques. I would have to approve building of mosques. I will have to ban all these microphones around disturbing everyone's sleep, especially during this Ramadan. It's like everyone has to be Muslim by force. If you are not Muslim, then they will disturb your peace. You can't sleep. So Nigeria is so much free that we are free to lose our lives as well. So there are a lot of things I have written. And, I have 5 years of rest. So I've documented a lot of things. And before then, I'll release a documentary if I could get the funding. The documentary would bring out these stories and more out of for the world to see and for Nigeria to wake up and change its trajectory. So there are a lot of things to do. I think I don't have to be
Right.
president to do it. Only that I know I'm more effective if I was ever in good position to carry it out because it takes political courage to do that.
Well, Mubarak Bala, you have shared with us a tremendous amount of insight both into your own life and experiences and also with the political and life in Nigeria. I want to thank you for your time and for speaking with me today on Podcast for Inquiry. Are there any last thoughts that you would like to share with our listeners?
Of course. Firstly, I would appreciate the fact that you guys out there were there for me. Because without the internet, without the agitation, I would have been banished for good. The government always incarcerates and never bothers about trial. I think to try me in 24 months, it was pretty early. And for me to have cut it short by pleading guilty, I think I was smart enough to understand that the trial could have taken longer and more dangerous turns. So I would like to thank all of you out there that had reached out and gave. Some of them gave resources. Some of them gave their hours online. A lot of people wrote to me. Even though while I was in Kano, I never got any letters. But the moment I reached Abuja, a few of the letters came through. So these are the moments that I had the courage that I was not alone. It was a dark. It was the most trying moment of my life. I suffered a lot. I'm still recovering. I developed health challenges. I'm still on medications. And one of the reasons why I had to leave Nigeria is to go and scan all those scars. I developed cardiomegaly. My heart enlarged in my chest. There are a lot of challenges I have encountered. So I thank you both here in Nigeria and out there for being there for me, especially because when the local population was silenced to support me, those folks out there never kept quiet about it and pressured my own government until they paid attention that I shouldn't be killed, I shouldn't be carelessly probably allowed to die. And so, in the end, they had to allow medications to come through for me, which was a lifeline. And later, resources came through, which were allowed me to renourish myself. I think I lost about 20 kilograms while in jail. I so emaciated that I was less than 70 kilograms, I think 62 kilograms. So these are the things I would like to appreciate the public more, and especially for giving me this platform to speak, at least for the first time in half a decade. And I hope to see more of it soon, especially if I'm in a freer country that I could speak freer without fear that someone is coming to behead me from behind my back. So thank you all of you,
And
and thank you,
thank you.
Leslie.
Thank you for a wonderful
You're
conversation on
welcome.
Podcast for Inquiry.
Thank you, Leslie.
If you enjoyed today's podcast, please consider giving us a 5-star review and showing your support at patreon.com/podcastforinquiry. Email us podcast@centerforinquiry.ca. We'd love to hear your perspective. The Podcast for Inquiry is brought to you by the Centre for Inquiry Canada. We are a national educational charity supporting reason, compassion, and secular values. Help us support rational discourse and evidence-based decision-making by becoming a member at centerforinquiry.ca/join. CFIC is on the web, on Facebook, and you can follow us on Blue Sky at CFI Canada. Podcast for Inquiry is produced and edited by Zach Dumont and Martin Zielinski. Music by Anthony Lazaro. I'm your host, Leslie Rosenblatt. See you next time.